Good evening, Nightmare Roadshow crew. I'm SOS, and I'm here with the beautiful.
Messy Jessie. And what are we talking about today?
Holy crap. This is a true crime story that will take probably an hour or more to tell. I have 18 pages of notes. Yeah. So this woman was bonkers. And I remember this happening because it happened in Sacramento, California. And yeah, it, and so I grew up between Sacramento and South Lake Tahoe up in the mountains. So if you were to kind of drop a pin kind of halfway point, that's where I grew up. I always associate more with South Lake Tahoe because that's where I was all the time. That was
it like a northeast, south, like gang signs,
That was a gang. Yeah, I don't even think anybody up there knows what that means. But all of our news came out of Sacramento. KCRA Sacramento. That was our news channel, still is. And so when this story hit, and I'm dating myself back in the day, when there was 3 channels, maybe 4. So
okay, calm down. Are you okay?
So when this hit the news, it frickin' was everywhere because it dominated all the news channels. So everybody heard about this case. So we're talking about a woman named Dorothea Puente. And I bet when I start talking about her, you will go, I know this story.
Okay. Well, let's see. I haven't named sometimes.
Yeah, well, she was born Dorothea Gray on January 9th, 1929 in Redlands, California. So down Southern California. That's where she was born and raised. Both of her parents were alcoholics. And apparently her father was like constantly threatening suicide, which is not healthy. It's not healthy. No. So, and it's ridiculous. Don't do that to people. Don't do that. Okay. So he was constantly doing it until he ended up dying of tuberculosis in 1937. So, there you go. Her mother was a hooker, and she lost custody of the kids and then died in 1938. So right the year after her dad died. And maybe, I don't know if she was always like in the sex worker trade. It could have been that husband died. He was an alcoholic. She was too, but she didn't have any skills. And so that was a skill. And you know what I mean? So she's trying to support the kids. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think back in those days too, women still did not hold any property or couldn't hold any real property. I could be wrong, but I think they were still trying to work all the kinks out in the legal system.
It's bonkers, isn't it?
It's sad.
She ended up dying in a motorcycle accident in 1938, her mom. And so Dorothea and her siblings were sent to an orphanage. And apparently she was sexually abused in the orphanage. So terrible start in life. I mean, terrible start. But that doesn't give you free reign to do the things she did. Okay?
Correct.
So she gets married at 16, which is 1945. She marries a soldier who had just returned from the Pacific Theater, World War II, right? They had 2 daughters, one in 1946 and one in 1948. And this is what's strange to me, because she sent one of the children to live with relatives and placed the other one up for adoption. But I don't know where her husband was. Like, where's Fred? His name was Fred McFall.
Maybe he got tired of her.
So, I mean, why? That's so strange to me. I don't know. And why would one go, not both of them, to relatives? I don't know. Maybe they couldn't afford. I don't know. Very weird. But anyway, 1948, She was arrested for check forgery in Riverside, California. She did plead guilty to 2 counts of forgery. She served a few months in jail, 3 months probation, or 3 years probation, and then about 6 months after she was released, Fred left her. He's like, done. So he's still in the picture when she puts the kids up, like sends them away. So I don't know what's happening. Was he disabled when he came back from the war and couldn't work and they couldn't feed him? I don't know. There's not much information.
Yeah.
Okay. So 1952, she gets married for the second time to a merchant seaman. His name is Axel Bryn Johnson. Kind of sounds movie starish. Axel Bryn Johnson. Oh, Johansson. So, yeah, Axel Bryn. Or Bryn Johansson. I don't know. It was a cool. She creates this weird. She rebrands herself and she becomes Taya Sinjala Nayarda and calls herself a Muslim woman of Egyptian and Israeli descent.
Okay.
I know, it's like, okay, what? Of all of the things, she calls herself now Taya. And apparently their marriage was not a good one, and it was very rocky. And because he's a merchant seaman, he's always at sea. And so she's always inviting men to the home, and she takes his checks, whatever he could send home, and she's gambling away the money and just, So this woman's a peach. So she was arrested in 1960 for owning and operating a bookkeeping firm as a front for a brothel in Sacramento. So she's moved from Southern California to Northern California. Now, so she's apparently now a madam and has a brothel going on. And she, I know. This gal's crazy. She's a little ahead of her time, though,
For real.
So she was found guilty. They busted the brothel. She's found guilty. She does like 90 days in jail. No big deal. And Johansson commits her to a state mental hospital for a while. So he's like, this woman's batshit and she's got to go to a hospital. And they do commit her. And they said it was, she would go on these binges of drinking and like lying and all this criminal behavior. And he just figured it's a mental illness. And the state agreed and said, yeah, we'll commit her.
Yeah.
So apparently she was also kind of suicidal. She'd go on and off suicidal. And then she was diagnosed as a pathological liar with an unstable personality. So don't know what that means exactly.
I mean, everything back in those days, you can go to an institution for anything, honestly.
Yeah, I think she needed it because of what happened next. He divorces her. He's like, done. And she continued to use his name and then now calls herself Sharon Johansson. And she portrays herself now as a devout Christian woman.
I loved how you say Sharon Johansson.
Yeah.
Sharon.
Sorry.
Anyway, we have to have a little humor, folks.
Christian woman, which is complete BS. So now that she's Sharon, she's a caregiver and she's devout and a loving, caring woman who would never hurt anybody. Okay.
Found God, right?
Yeah.
Everybody found God.
And she would provide young women with a place to live in her big old house on F Street. And apparently without charge, but I don't know if like the churches weren't like giving her money or something. I'm not sure. So that's 1966. 1968, she gets married again. So this is what, husband number 4. And his name is Roberto Puente. And after 16 months or so, they separate, and she's citing domestic abuse. She attempts to serve him with a divorce petition, but he flees to Mexico.
And damn, blame him. He's like, that's it. I'm done.
He's like, thank God I got out of this one alive. And then the divorce wasn't finalized until 1973 because they couldn't find him. And but he kept coming back into the picture. So 1975, she files for a restraining order, and she uses his last name for 20 years, but they do get divorced. And so this is when she decides, look, I'm a good Christian woman, and I need to run a boarding house for all of the people in Sacramento who need me.
I mean,
you know, so
hopes and dreams.
Yeah, well, so she establishes this house on F Street as an absolutely wonderful place for the alcoholics and homeless people and mentally ill to come in and find a place to live. And she holds AA meetings in the house, and she begins assisting people who are receiving Social Security benefits with cashing their checks and, helping them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You just got to help them.
She changes her appearance completely to like she went from this like fiery woman to this matronly woman. And I'm going to show you a picture of her. It absolutely.
Did she dye her hair?
Well, if I can figure out how to share screen. Hello. I think she did. So here she is.
Here she. Oh, look.
She's just this. She just wants to help.
She looks like a very innocent little lady.
Yeah, that's it. She's innocent.
And her red coat.
And this is the late 70s or mid 70s. So she's dressing like she's from what, early 50s?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, she's a real peach, this one. So she's changed her appearance. She's wearing these big old glasses. She lets her hair go gray, and she's just this respectable member of the Hispanic community because her last name's Puente. And so she's like apparently like doing radio programs, and she meets and marries a man named Pedro Montalvo, although he left after a week and went, I'm out. So
they finally figured out that the tequila and the worm hit them hard this time.
Yeah. And he sobered up and went, holy crap, what have I done? Yeah. So he leaves in a week after their marriage, and this is in the late 70s. And then on December 21st, 78, she's convicted of illegally cashing 34 state and federal checks that belonged to her tenants. And so this is
okay.
Yeah. So she's given 5 years probation in order to pay $4,000 in restitution.
She's got 5 years probation. Pocket.
She has a rap sheet. Okay. She's been doing all kinds of nefarious things for many, many years. But she's only given probation. This woman, she's not changing her ways here. Okay. So 1982, January, she meets a guy named Malcolm McKenzie. He's 74 years old. They hanging out in a bar, having drinks, this good Christian woman. And She accompanies him back to his apartment. And he later reports that he was drugged by her, and then she robbed him of a coin collection, watches and jewelry, and even a diamond ring that belonged to his mother. And she took, I guess he had the ring like on his pinky. And she, while he was knocked out, when she drugged him, she even removed the pinky off of his finger. Yeah.
Oh, my Lanta.
Yeah.
It goes to show you that little old women, don't mess with them.
I'm telling you. So now in about 1982, she begins renting the rooms again. So now she's actually renting them. And at first she lived there by herself and she's renting the rooms. But then, and this is when she meets, let's see, a person named Ruth Monroe, Ruth Clausen Monroe. And she said, look, I've got rooms to rent. They're cheap. You can come up here and have a place to live. And Monroe had been a clerk in a Sacramento pharmacy until she retired in 1980. And she really didn't drink. It was really, really rare for her to drink any. She just didn't like alcohol. And she had been prescribed Tylenol and codeine for pain. Apparently, I don't know if she got in a wreck or something like that. And she had married a guy named Harold Monroe, but he was an alcoholic. And looking here, Monroe, okay. And then in 1982, Monroe was prescribed a tranquilizer called meprobamate. Never heard of it.
Isn't it kind of like a horse tranquilizer?
I've never heard of it. I mean, I have horses and I've never used it. Meprobamate. I don't know. Could be another trade name somewhere that, you know. And Harold was also prescribed Tylenol and codeine, and he was diagnosed with cancer right around then. He didn't have long to live, and he was in a lot of pain. Yeah. So he was admitted to the hospital in 1982, and he wasn't expected to come home. And so Monroe needed a place to live, right? Because now her he's dying in the hospital, and things seemed a little overwhelming for her, obviously. So she goes to live with Dorothea, and they became best friends, like so close. Like
BFFs for the end.
BFFs, and they start a like food service operation, which served breakfast and lunch in a Sacramento bar. Which cool, that's cool. But
okay,
yeah, but after a few weeks after she had moved into the flat at F Street, Monroe filed a divorce from Harold because they were having financial difficulties paying for his medical bills because they were married. So if they filed for divorce, then he's indigent. They can't really go after her wages, and the state will end up covering all of the cancer expenses because she can't do it.
Yeah.
You know?
I can only imagine. I mean, it's like expensive now, even back then. You know,
I know.
It's like...
So she's moved in. She's 61 years old. She's living with Dorothea. She's looking forward to living there rather than being alone because Harold's not coming home. And she has 5 children. 4 of them lived in Sacramento, and she had around 20 grandkids. And they visited her, some of them almost every single day. It was a really tight-knit family. It was not like she had kids and they just forgot she existed. They went on with their lives. They were tight. And sometime around the middle of April or so, Ruth is visiting friends of hers at their house, and she's complaining. She's in good health, and she showed her friend apparently a large amount of money she had in her purse, and it was like $1,100. But at the time, you know, it's pretty good money.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, and the apparently she had made most of that during that lunch business, but the business wasn't working out as well as they thought, and they kind of ended that. So, and then she went regularly to the beauty parlor. They'd have she'd meet a friend there, and they'd get their hair done. And everybody said she was really sad about Harold. I mean, he was like a very long pronounced bout of cancer and death. She was very sad, but she was in really good health. But that took a turn pretty quickly. On April of that year, she was visiting a friend again, and she said, I feel so sick. I feel like I'm going to die. And she went from being super duper healthy to, and like a few days later going, God, what is wrong? She was really, really ill. And her friend kept saying, maybe you should go to the hospital. Maybe you should go to the hospital. Yeah. And she doesn't. And her kids were just like, what's going on, Mom? And she's like, I just feel so sick. I don't know what's going on. The evening of April 25th, her son visited her at the F Street apartment, and noticed she looked really, really tired, but she wasn't depressed. And she was drinking a green liquid. Now, that could have been anything from that weird Gatorade stuff. When it came out, it had kind of a green tinge.
Or something else.
Yeah, he didn't know because she didn't drink alcohol. But what else has a green tint to it? Right? Which is antifreeze.
Windex?
Antifreeze? It's kind of that yellow, fluorescent yellow kind of green. Yeah. And he said it was really weird. He goes, she's sipping the drink. And he said it was really strange because he never saw his mom drink alcohol. So he didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
Okay. And Dorothea said that she had fixed her creme de menthe. And that's what she was sipping to calm her nerves and relax her.
A creme de die.
Yeah. Well, over the next couple of days, she's increasingly sick. Like she should have gone to the hospital 2 days earlier on the 25th. Now it's the 27th. Yeah. William comes to visit his mom again. He finds her in the bedroom, and she kept saying, I'm so sick. Please, I just need to be left alone. And Dorothea kept trying to keep him from going into his mom's bedroom. And he's like, no, I want to go see my mom. And so they did still, though, everybody still trusted Dorothea. Like all the kids didn't think that she would ever do anything wrong. And she had said that Dorothy had told them that she worked as a nurse or nurse's aide. They couldn't remember. And they felt like their mom was in the best care possible. Okay. And she had told William, look, your mom had just gotten a shot. The doctor was just here. Not to worry. He came here a little while ago. He gave her a shot. She's resting. Just leave her alone. Later that night, about 8 o'clock, when her daughter, Ruth's daughter, Rosemary, comes over, she's really concerned. And because she's like, this is not like my mom. What is going on? And she was in a pretty much a trance-like state at that point. And at 5:30 the next morning, Dorothea called Rosemary and said, something's really wrong with your mother, and you better get over here right away. And they said, she said that Ruth had experienced arm, side, and chest pain the previous evening. And I'm like, okay, then why the frick didn't she call an ambulance? Right?
Because they have, what's her name there? Doctor?
Well, yeah, but the whole thing is just mind-blowing to me. If my mom was there, no, you're coming with me. We're going to the hospital. I mean, that would have been that.
This is weird. I'd be like, she doesn't drink juice. I would have called her out.
Yeah. So Ruth dies. She's unresponsive and she dies.
Dang it.
And they do tox testing of her blood, and they found very high levels of Tylenol codeine, well beyond what they said therapeutic dosages would be. In addition to the meprobamate.
What's in antifreeze?
Well, I don't know. I don't know, because that's not, I don't think it's on a normal tox screen. They have to actually think about like testing for it. I don't think it's in a normal tox screen. So they found those 2 drugs. They said although the Tylenol level was lethal, it didn't cause her death because it takes more time for Tylenol to cause the death. What happened was she was given such a large amount of codeine that it caused respiratory depression. So she couldn't catch her breath and suffocated, basically.
Oh.
Yeah,
because it just slows down like it completely. It's almost kind of like the effects of fentanyl, you know.
Oh yeah,
it's
yeah.
just you over. I mean, yeah.
They did find contents of her stomach contained about 5 ounces of a dark green fluid that smelled a bit mint-like, and they weren't sure what that was. I don't know if they did a tox on it or not. I just thought, it's really weird. So anyway, and remember, this is like 1980, 1982.
Right.
Do you think that they would been a little bit more on the ball with the testing? But okay.
I think so, but it just depends. I mean, look at DNA. I mean,
yeah,
it's just beginning.
Right. So 1982, Dorothea meets Dorothy Osborne, befriends her, goes to visit her, and then Dorothy finds, after Dorothea left, she found checks, credit cards, and other items missing after Dorothea came to her house to visit her. I mean, this woman is just, yeah. Okay, so 1982, Dorothea is convicted of 3 grand theft charges. She was sentenced to 5 years in prison and state parole until March of 1986. So she does a few years in prison, but she still has this F Street house, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And during her incarceration, she starts corresponding, little pen pal here, with a guy named Everson Theodore Gilmuth. He's 77 years old.
Mr. Gilman.
I know. And this isn't going to end well for him.
No.
He's from Oregon. She's writing to him. He's fallen in love with her because she's very good at manipulating people and saying everything. So at the beginning of September 1985, when she's being paroled, he loads up everything and he drives to Sacramento, and he arrives at the house and moves in. And she'd only served half of her sentence. She's released from prison, and she's picked up by a Gilmuth and this guy named Ricardo, or let's just call him Ricardo. I can't say the last name. He was a close friend who lived with his family in the downstairs apartment of this big house. So Puente apparently also wrote to Gilmuth's sister and informed her that she and Gilmuth were to be married November 2nd. Then a short time later, she hires this guy named Ishmael, Ishmael, Ismael. Is that Ishmael?
Yeah, I think it's Ishmael. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She hires this handyman to do some remodeling. And while he's there, she goes, by the way, can you make a 6-foot long, 30-inch deep by 30-inch wide storage box? Yeah.
I'd be like,
What do you think?
Myself.
Mm-hmm. So she, in agreement, when he asked the way to pay this off, he's like, well, that's kind of odd, but okay. And she said, I'll give you this truck, which was Gilmuth's, and $800 as payment to make this box and do all this remodeling for me. And he's like, damn, okay. So after he completed the box, he returned the next day to do some work. He finds the box is nailed shut. He's like, well, that's weird. And so she asked him to help her move the box, which now weighs about 300 pounds. So,
I mean, just dirt in there. It's fine.
Yeah. Dirt. It's tools, odds and ends. It's books. Don't worry about it. It's just books. So they move it to a storage location. But then, because it was becoming a problem, they ended up dumping the box into the Sacramento River. That's odd. Why would you pay that much money for a box full of stuff that apparently he wanted to keep safe and then dump it in a river.
I mean,
You know.
that's safe, right? I mean,
Oh
it's
my
just,
God. So fishermen notice it a few days later, a suspicious box on the Sacramento River, and notified the deputies and said, when they went and opened the box and found Gilmith inside.
oh my God.
Uh-huh. He was wrapped in numerous plastic bags, covered with a bed sheet, and everything was all wrapped up with electrical tape. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was later discovered that after Gilmith's death, Puente had mailed all these fake letters and cards to his sister, pretending to be him. So, and she was forging, like she forged his signature on the truck title and was still cashing his benefit checks. So up until like for some 8 months or so after his death, she's just cashed in.
She's like, it's fine.
Oh, but I don't think we're about halfway through this case.
Oh my hell.
Uh-huh.
This woman.
This woman. In the fall of 86, a lady named Betty, she's 78 years old, she arrives at the boarding house. And on October 14th, 86, Dorothea obtained a California ID card with Dorothea's photo and Palmer's name. So Betty May Palmer. Betty May Palmer. I love that name, Betty May.
Oh my God. That's
Yeah. 2 months later, the mailing address on Palmer's Social Security checks was changed to Puente's F Street. So I don't know if she was getting it at like her old residence and just go over there and pick up the checks. But now the checks are being routed to the F Street location. And she's forging Betty May's signature on all these checks. And she cashed about $7,000 worth of benefit checks in Palmer's name. So she's forging all of these checks. Okay. Now that's 1986.
She's like freaking smart. Like and guts. Like, hey, let's cash these checks. That's wow.
I would be a nervous wreck all the time, even considering doing something like this. I'm not a good liar. I'm not a good, you know what I mean? So here we go. November 1988, Palmer's partially dismembered body was discovered in a shallow hole in Dorothea's front yard.
He must have just fell in there, okay?
She fell in there.
Allegedly fell in there.
Her head, hands, and lower legs were never found. She fell in there and lost all her body parts.
So, did she have a roast after this?
So, toxicology reports that there was a presence of doxylamine, which is an over-the-counter antihistamine, as well as haloperidol and flurazepam, both of which are, I want to say they're depressants, like they depress
and
the
anxiety
system.
medicines.
Yeah, right? That's what I was thinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she had to be identified from x-rays because she was missing so many body parts, but they did identify her. It took some time. She was identified in January of 89. They found her in November of 88, and they ID'd her January 89.
Yeah, they obviously used dental records.
Well, she was missing her head. So,
okay. Well, that.
So I don't know how they identified her, unless she had like some kind of break. She was missing her head, her hands, and her lower legs. I don't know.
So just a torso. That's it.
Her torso and her arms were intact. Yeah, probably. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe
weird.
Some identifying scars or something. I don't know.
Could have been. Maybe they've noticed some weird break that didn't heal right or something, and so they went to the local hospitals. So October 21st, 1986. Now, Dorothea is summoned to a hospital to be a notary for a lady named Leona Carpenter. Because remember, she's a church-going lady who can do nothing but help people.
Correct. She's a saint.
Yeah, she's a saint. Leona had suffered a flurazepam overdose. So I guess that anxiety medicine, I guess. And because Dorothea was such a saintly woman, she was given power of attorney over Leona. And she begins cashing Leona's checks.
Oh.
Just 10 days later. Okay. Now Leona is released from the hospital. Guess where she goes to live? Yeah.
The boarding house.
With the saint. With Saint Dorothea.
Yes. Of course she is.
Yeah. So that was February 1987. She disappeared. November 88, her body was found in the southeastern corner of Puente's yard. Now, it's not like they're finding a body and that nothing happens, guys. They find all of these bodies at once.
Oh, yeah, because there was evidence of something else going
on.
Something's
going on, and it we'll get there. But so there was, so it's not like they found a body, nothing happened. They find another body, nothing happened. All these bodies were found on one big dig, okay? So toxicology reports of her brain tissue revealed codeine, diazepam, and flurazepam. So she was given a lethal dose.
Yeah.
But we're just getting started, guys.
It's just getting started.
Yep. February 87, James Gallup, he's 62. He moves into the boarding home. And he has what could be a malignant tumor found in his colon. I'm not sure. He needed further testing. So he asked Dorothea to help him because she's a saint. And she contacted his doctor's office and notified them that he'd gone to LA. Look, he moved to LA. He's going to get care down there. So you don't have to schedule anything for him. He's gone. Yeah, he was gone. All right. He was found buried under the gazebo in Puente's yard. Okay.
How close are her neighbors?
Right there. Like I worked later, right around the corner from this damn house. And I would sit there and look at this house and go, how the frick did they not know something was going on? It's right there. And I'm going to show you a picture. I'm pretty sure I have a picture.
I'm just wondering, are these neighbors like,
well,
she's out there planting tomatoes again?
Well, yeah, she had pretty extensive gardens and they were very well fertilized.
Well, yes.
Lots of
I'm sure they were.
Yes, they were. Okay, so he was overdosed on amitriptyline, nortriptyline, and phentoin, and flurazepam. So she gets anything she can get her hands on.
Anti-anxiety medicines.
Okay, yeah. So here comes poor little Eugene Gamble. He's 58. He was found dead of an apparent suicide, having overdosed on amitriptyline and ethanol. Ethanol.
God. Ethanol is like in gas, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I think ethanol is also, isn't that the antifreeze? Ethanol?
I think so.
That's glycol, ethylene glycol, right? That's antifreeze. So ethanol, yeah, that could be gas. Anyway, she was his landlady, and she said he had a history of suicide attempts, He was never she was never charged with Gamble's murder, but he was considered a victim of hers. Okay. And then there's 1987, Vera Martin, who's 61, who moved in with Dorothea, and Dorothea began immediately forging a number of her Social Security checks totaling over $7,000. And all of a sudden she fails to contact her daughter on her birthday because she's very close to her daughter. So why didn't mom call me? And November of 88, when the dig happened, they found her body next to, under a metal shed.
Oh, and I did Google antifreeze. And yes, there is ethanol, glycol, propylene glycol, and methanol.
Okay.
And it's clear odorless and sweet tasting, by the way.
Yeah, they dye it so that you can see it, because it is an incredibly, it will kill your animals if it's, if there's a leak. They want you to be able to see it, so it's dyed. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. We're not done. Dorothy Miller, 65. She rents.
How many people?
Oh yeah. She rents an upstairs flat in Dorothea's home, and she introduced Dorothea to Ricardo, the guy who was renting the downstairs flat, like with the family. And Dorothea became the representative payee for her Social Security checks. And I don't know how that works. Maybe you're deemed like not competent.
Unless you're going to get in a power of attorney.
Yeah.
You know?
So, just a few weeks after Miller arrived, she's gone. She's disappeared, and she hires a carpet cleaner to remove a large pile of foul-smelling slime in Miller's room. And she continued to cash Miller's checks totaling over $11,000. And her remains were discovered buried under a slab of concrete near some rose bushes.
I'm sure those roses were very beautiful.
Very beautiful. There was the presence of carbamazepine and fluorazepine, Pam, in her blood. Okay. Oh my God, we're not done.
It's okay.
Brenda Trujillo sent a letter. This is November 87. So this is a year before the bodies are found.
Mm-hmm.
She sent a letter to the Social Security office in Sacramento accusing Dorothea of stealing her Social Security checks of about $3,500. Trujillo had met Puente in jail in 1982, and the two later shared a prison cell. And then after she was released from jail, she went to live with Dorothea. And Dorothea helped her apply for Social Security benefits. And then she claimed that Dorothea had drugged her and called her parole officer, causing her parole to be revoked so that she could continue receiving the checks. She set her up.
Oh, my.
Yeah. Okay. Now, this is the case. No, maybe not. I think this was the actual case that started the investigation, the person who started the investigation, but it was not her last kill. There was a man in February 88 named Alvaro Bert Gonzalez Montoya. He's 51, and he moves into the F Street house, and he designates Dorothea as his benefits payee. And at the end of August, so that's February, so he lived there until August. He made it a long time in that house.
Yeah.
A roommate saw a man clearing out all of his clothes from the closet, and Dorothea said, oh, he went to Mexico to visit some relatives. But I'm like, if he's visiting, why is his clothes being taken out? Right. And social workers, who was in charge of Montoya's case, because he needed a lot of help in life. So social workers are attempting to contact him, and they can't. So in November, Dorothea asked a former convict who'd been working in her yard to contact the social worker and pretend to be him, pretend to be Bert. And the social worker was suspicious. They were like really suspicious about all of this stuff. And they ended up calling the police. But November 10th, they also received, this is so weird, they received a letter wrapped in a paper towel, like she was trying to avoid fingerprints on the piece of paper. And it said, don't look for me, I'm fine, basically, I've gone somewhere else. And they're like, no, this is
He
weird.
doesn't do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So they ended up calling the police, and that started the investigation, which led to all of the finding of the bodies. But in between this time, a man named Benjamin Fink, who went to live with Puente, he lived there for 6 weeks. His brother visited him every week faithfully. They were very close. And by the end of April, he moved in March 9th. By the end of April, he's gone. And his brother's like, where is he? And another tenant in the house was reported smelling a really bad odor from his room. Okay. Puente kept saying, don't worry about it. It's just a sewer backup. I'm going to get it worked on. It wasn't the sewer. His body was discovered next door to the metal shed. And his body was covered in a plastic knotted bedspread secured with duct tape and covered with blue absorbent pads. Yeah.
Why would the pads have anything to do with it? I mean,
I don't know. Maybe weird. She was trying to keep the odor down. I don't know. Or maybe those were the pads she was soaking up, maybe some of the decay, because I think she was leaving the bodies to decay until she could find a window to bury them.
Yeah. I mean, there is quite interesting smell.
So November of 88, November 7th, the police now are involved because the social worker from Montoya's case is like, look, something is wrong.
Right.
And they were relentless. Okay. So they meet, they speak with this guy named John Sharp, and he was a former resident. And they're asking him about the disappearance of Bert Montoya. Okay. And he was saying, look, I just saw him 2 days ago, but then he slips the cop a note because apparently he doesn't, he's scared. He's scared. I think he knew what was going on. And the note to the officer said, she wants me to lie to you. And now the officers are like, what the hell? Okay. And so November 11th, the detective returns to Dorothea's residence, and with her permission, which is odd, they start digging in areas that look recently disturbed. Okay. With her permission, I'd say get a warrant, but she's a saint, you know?
Right. She's got nothing to hide.
Right. 30 minutes later, they find the first body. Okay. But guess what? She slips out. She slips away from the crowd and she takes off. All right.
Maybe she's like, the goose is up. Yeah, sure. Go ahead and dig in my yard.
I know. And so she's gone.
Go to the grocery store.
Like, the hell? She takes off, and CBS on, they issue an all points bulletin on November 13th for her. And on November 16th, CBS news station in Los Angeles saw her and called the cops, and they arrested her. Okay.
Oh my God.
Unbelievable. So she's formally charged November 17th, 88. She was flown from Hollywood back up to Sacramento, and she's booked and charged with murder of Montoya. And then on March 10th, charged with charges against Ishmael Flores were dismissed because the statute of limitations had expired 3 years earlier after Gilman's body was discovered, but they do charge her for it. They just can't remember the contractor, Ishmael. Right. They can't go after him, and he probably turned state's evidence anyway and said everything. Look, yeah, she asked me to do this. I don't know what the hell was going on. Okay. Then on March 31st, all of these amendments and things were filed as she was all of these cases, like Sacramento had never seen anything like this. Even though Sacramento is a city, they've never seen anything like this at the time. They've had some serial killers and stuff like that, but nothing on this scale.
And I think she's got all of even the male serial killers beat.
Yeah, I was gonna, and I'm gonna show you the dig. So this is when they're there. Now you can see the houses are like right next door to each other. they start digging. Okay. And then I'm going to share another. It's bananas. It is absolutely bananas. There's another picture here to share. This is them digging in the yard and under buildings. And
Oh my God.
I remember seeing this on the news. Like, it was craziness. It was
Can you
crazy.
imagine
Everyone
them,
was
like-
glued to the screen.
I couldn't be those investigators. No.
Yeah. So anyway, her trial began in 1993. It takes them that long. I mean, so this is 1988. They discovered all the bodies. But now they have to do all these investigations because there's so many bodies, and put together
it makes
the
you wonder
timeline.
how many officers were involved with that, you know?
Absolutely. So they had 156 witnesses and 3,100 exhibits and 22,000 pages of transcripts at that trial.
I would not want to be that legal assistant.
No. They deliberated for 7 days, the jury, and they were deadlocked on all 9 counts of murder and asked for further instruction. Can you believe that shit? I just like, what? How are you deadlocked?
Bananas.
So the judge ordered the jury to resume their deliberations, and on August 26th, they did convict her of 3 counts of murder for Benjamin Fink, Leona Carpenter, and Dorothy Miller. The jury deliberated for 35 days and remained deadlocked on 6 cases: Ruth Monroe, Gilmuth, Palmer, Gallup, Martin, and Montoya. It just blows my mind. How are you deadlocked? The same.
Maybe they didn't get dinner. Okay,
I don't know. During the death penalty or the penalty phase of the trial, they found themselves deadlocked again. So she was spared the death penalty. What kills me is, as a juror sitting there, why the hell would you find her guilty of the 3 and not the rest when the drugs were consistent?
Right. And where she buried them were pretty consistent.
Yeah. I mean, the only one she didn't bury was Gilmuth. She dumped him in the river, but the rest of them were buried. What is wrong with you people? I can't. That just blows my mind. Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, she was convicted to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. She was incarcerated in the Central California Women's Facility in Chowchilla, and she did appeal, and appeals never went anywhere. And she died 2011. She was 82 years old.
Man, that woman lived her life. And unfortunately, people lost their lives. This case was bananas.
Yeah.
Bananas.
Yeah. And there was so much more from the trial that I could have brought in. There was so much. She did so many things. It wasn't like I just glossed over a lot of the things that she did. There are actually trial notes out there that you can look at, and the evidence that I brought some of the notes in, but honestly, you can go out and find trial transcripts that I did look through some of them, but when they said 22,000 pages, they weren't lying.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's a lot of reading.
It is. And it's like, do we really need to go through all this? No, she was just a monster. And I'm glad she's finally caught. She would have kept killing until the day she died.
I just don't understand how this woman did this in her older years. Like, you would think somebody is like frail, and I'm not saying like all older generations frail. Okay. I'm just saying but you look at, like, I look at my grandma and I'm like, that blows my mind.
Well, I mean, she did dismember the one body. Was she just? I don't think she was dismembering the other ones, but did she have help? That's what I wondered about. She did have the man that lived downstairs that did help her with stuff. I don't
Did
know.
he
I
help
mean,
her with lots more stuff?
yeah, I don't know. Or I don't know. Or was there another tenant there that helped her bury bodies in exchange for living there for free? I don't know. That
Or she probably drugged them like at the get-go to get, because I think those anti-anxiety medicines make you so tired, you know, the ones they prescribed back in the day and even still to this day.
right.
And they make you so tired, and putting pain medication on top of that, you're not going to have any energy to fight back.
Mm-mm. Yeah, guys. So if you want to go out there and look at the trial notes and the transcripts, there's a lot of stuff available on this case. If you're a true crime junkie and you really want to delve into it, this woman was a wackadoo. And I think I'm wondering, like, okay, the yard, if you looked at, there's a map of like where the bodies were, it's a tiny yard because the houses in the Old Town district of Sacramento, the house takes up like 70% of the lot or more.
Yeah.
Could
They
even
don't
be
have yard.
No, they have a little tiny yard, like some roses and a little tiny patio off the back, and then a driveway to usually a little garage. They're really tall, usually 2 to 3 story older homes, and but they're right next to each other,
Yeah.
And just a note of the Dude and Bro Show, as we call them, Ghost Adventures, went to the house. And there's
that's right.
Yeah.
I remember.
And you can see the dude and bro on the front porch, doing their stupid stuff. They went to the boarding house and did an investigation there. And I can honestly tell you that you can sit outside the house and you feel just depression, and it just doesn't feel good. It's very, very heavy. And it is a beautiful home, and the people who have it have done a lot of care to the house. But that's a history. How do you get over that?
Yeah, I don't.
In California, you have to disclose murders, suicides, and deaths on a property, and there's no time limit. I think here you have to do it within 3 years.
I think 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, in California, there's no time limit, so you have to disclose all of that stuff. If you have the history, and this one is so well known that everybody, I mean, they have to disclose how many people died in that house.
Yeah.
So
wow, that is crazy to me. I bet the neighbors are probably like sitting there like, what the, like, I thought she was like the nicest old lady I've ever met in my entire life. Well, not really.
Yeah, she was really nice unless you were on Social Security and needed a place to live. I mean, holy hell.
I bet she had money hidden somewhere too. Like I bet.
Think of how many people, oh my God, it's just craziness. It's craziness. Thank God. I mean, her husbands were probably going, whoo, like
thank God we went to Mexico.
Oh my God. It was, yeah. So
anyway, well,
that's our true crime for tonight. And it didn't take me an hour. So I did, as I was talking, kind of whittle it down, and because there was just so much detail that we just didn't need it. But yeah.
Wow.
There we go.
That's crazy. All right. What the
well,
heck?
Thanks for joining us on this episode of True Crime, and we will catch you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.